Brandon the Cowboy, thanks for joining us again. In our last segment, we talked a little bit about Donald Trump and the kind of presidency he's going to really hit the ground running on January 20th. And Patrick, you offered the suggestion this may not be good news for a corrupt federal government. And reading between the lines, the people who were in charge for the last 8 years, the Democrats.
Yep. And remember, Barack Obama was hoping Hillary got elected because then he thought his legacy would be secure.
And he could bury stuff.
Yeah. Ain't going to happen now. And what is his legacy? 8 years of stagnant growth, 8 years of crony capitalism.
A war he promised to end that he didn't end.
In fact, he's back in it now.
A Cuban prison he was going to close that he didn't.
Exactly, Guantanamo. All of his stuff with the bathrooms, and it's all small ball. He never, ever sat down and focused on the economy. I dare say, if he'd have focused on the economy from day one instead of Obamacare, something might have happened. But again, he's being tugged in all these directions from all these interest groups. Give me this, and give me that, and give me this. So he thinks his great accomplishment is the Paris Climate Accords. Big deal.
Which is going to make the average temperature change perhaps 1 degree in 20 years. It does that all the time by itself. But we digress. The other thing about Obama versus Trump, and you know, interestingly, he has stayed fairly constant in a popularity rating or approval rating. But you see Trump, he's bringing in the head of Carl's Jr. for labor. He's bringing in professional soldiers in the Defense Department and Homeland Security. It seems like Obama just brought in college professors and, you know, think tank people as opposed to people who get their hands dirty doing what they need to do.
The 8 years of the Obama administration is 8 years of the faculty lounge, where they all sit around.
By the way, I like your tweed sport coat.
Yeah, they sit around with their tweed jackets and their pipes, and you know they pontificate on the world, and they've never done anything. Then you put them in a position where they actually have to do something.
They don't know how to do it.
They don't know how. I mean, again, it's like the kid, you know, when you and I were kids, if you stuck us out in the woods, we'd look up, okay, that's north, that's where we're going, and that's where the house is. Now the kid gets out there and he goes, my GPS isn't working, there's not enough bars out here, you know? Well, too bad, kid, find your way home. And that's really where we are.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens on January 20th when the inauguration takes place, and President Trump, as he says, is going to get rid of a lot of executive orders. One of the things that came up this week, and it seems to come up almost every holiday or important date on our calendar, ISIS, saying there's going to be widespread carnage around the United States. Obviously, Donald Trump is going to be, and the security people are going to be cognizant of that. But one of the things Trump is going to try and do in quick order is to kill ISIS.
Yeah, I think he's going to do whatever he can in that respect. But he's going to listen to Mattis, and he's going to listen to the right people. He's got guys that know what they're doing. Unlike, again, the faculty lounge. These guys say, and I think they're also going to be judicious. You know, the warrior is the man who hates war the most because they're the ones that have to execute it. They're the ones that have to, a Mattis has to send young men and women into combat to maybe get killed. So they're more judicious about using troops. You know, MacArthur was very judicious about using his troops. Ulysses S. Grant back in the Civil War didn't like to waste soldiers on frontal assaults. So, you know, there's a history of this. I think that he's going to go in there, and however they do it, they're not going to pussyfoot around. It's not going to be, well, we're not going to bomb Tuesdays at 3 o'clock, and the White House is not going to be making targeting decisions like they're doing now. You won't have to call a lawyer. If you're a pilot flying over, hey, I'm going to take out these trucks. Take them out.
Right.
You know, don't call me.
Well, and you know, you have the term surgical strike in these incursions, and it's always the concern about collateral damage. Somehow, I don't know that these generals that he's appointing are going to be as concerned. When you think of the technology we have at our disposal, cruise missiles from the sea, all sorts of bombs by the air. I mean, if you really want to do it quick, you can do it quick, but there will be collateral damage.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Civilians love the word surgical strike. There's no such an animal. I don't care if the thing, you can put it in the guy's, you know, in the backseat of a truck. It still damages, and something's going to happen. So, you know, this is the way, where we're only doing surgical strikes. That's nonsense. You know, excuse me. The surgery is the whole place. That's where you're performing surgery.
You tug on the mule's tail, you're going to get kicked.
You're darn right, you know. So that's the way it should be.
He's got me even doing these wisdom
I
things.
know, see?
Well, we'll follow the ISIS story. Back to Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton. Trump is showing signs that he may just let her go. She's had it tough enough, losing twice in the presidential derby. Maybe we won't. But then again, maybe he's just posturing.
I think, first of all, he can't call the Justice Department and tell them to call off an investigation. I think when he said that, and again, the media grabbed it and ran with it instead of thinking, which they don't do, I think he said, remember he promised a special prosecutor.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I think he said, well, I'm not going to do a special prosecutor.
But I'll just stop
But
the
anything
Justice
that's going
Department
on,
with
I'm
people.
not going to tell them to stop the and the foundation really should be investigated by the IRS and everybody else. You have Chelsea Clinton using money from that to go travel, to pay for her wedding. I mean, you're embezzling funds from a nonprofit. That's against the law.
Right. Yeah. In fact, the actual humanitarian relief that came out of that foundation is, well, it's millions of dollars, but compared to what they take in, it's a very small percentage.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, Chelsea Hubble's out there using it as a piggy bank.
Chelsea Hubble.
Webb Hubble's daughter, by the way. Look it up.
That's what I like about him. He's not a conspiracy theorist at all. All right, before we wrap things up, the Obama legacy. We were talking about, we started that and then we kind of digressed a little bit. Do you think some of these things that have gone on have risen to the level of criminal offenses, and will Trump go after that?
No, I don't. I think he just abused the Constitution, and, you know, whether it's criminal or not. Look, his legacy, these presidents, these guys that get out of office, when they're in the last 2 years, they always say, well, let's start worrying about the legacy. You don't get to write the legacy. History writes the legacy. And history will not be kind to him, particularly if Trump is successful, because they'll say, well, what did we do for 8 years? It was a holiday from reality. It was a holiday from economic growth. You know, 8 years, imagine a person who lost their job in 08 and still out of work. 8 years, it's almost a decade. So I think his legacy is not going to be much when it push comes to shove.
And don't let these unemployment numbers, 4.6%, I believe, was the latest figure, fool you, because a lot of the people, maybe 100 million, about a third of the country, dropped out of the workforce already, so they're not even being measured.
Yep.
And as for Donald Trump, as much of an egotist as he is, I don't see him overly concerned about what his legacy is going to be. He really does want to fix the country.
I think he does, and he knows as well as I just said, he knows he doesn't get to write it. He knows you do everything you can, you make it successful. Somebody else is going to write it. Look, as you were telling me, when he went and took over the Commodore Hotel in New York, he did it. Remember his father warned him, don't go into Manhattan, son. Psh, you go in that Manhattan, that's a jungle. You're not ready for that, right? And he did. And he knows that history then wrote what he did, and they wrote it very favorably. So I don't think he sits around and worries about legacies.
So now the Grand Hyatt, one of the biggest hotels in town where all the baseball teams stay. If you're ever in New York and want to get autographs, go down to the lobby. Just a tip. Crane and the Cowboy joining you. We'll catch you next time.